Mr. Men, Little Miss, Happy Eid. Roger Hargreaves. It was the time of Ramadan, and Mr. Greedy's friend Aleena was fasting. For a whole month she could only eat before the sun rose in the morning and after the sun set in the evening. It was quite a challenge for Aleena. Mind you, not half the challenge it would have been for Mr. Greedy. He would not have lasted a whole day without a meal. In fact, Mr. Greedy found it hard to last a whole hour without something to eat. Now it was very nearly the end of Ramadan, and Aleena was excited at the thought of celebrating Eid-al-FITR, when everyone would break their fast with a huge feast. A bit like Mr. Greedy's fast-breaking breakfast he had every morning. Mind you, Mr. Greedy spent a lot of time fast-breaking. He was even up in the middle of the night for a midnight snack. Mr. Greedy was not the only person up at midnight. Little Miss Inventor was out with her telescope looking at the stars and the moon in the night sky. The timing of the Eid festival is determined by the rising of the new moon. The days before Eid were spent cleaning and decorating everyone's homes for the festival. Mr. Rush had promised to help Aleena clean her house. But there was a problem, and that problem was Mr. Rush. He was in such a rush he only half finished his jobs. He half mopped the floor, and Mr. Bump slipped over. Bump! And he knocked over the bucket Mr. Rush had left out. Splash! So, when Mr. Rush announced that he had to rush off before they were finished, Aleena was really rather grateful, which left Aleena with Mr. Bump, who said he would hang the decorations, but every time he climbed the stepladder he fell off. Bump, bump, bump. Poor Mr. Bump. Aleena decided that he should hold the ladder instead while she hung the decorations. Ramadan was a time for generosity, and Aleena had organised for everyone to donate something to the local children's football club. The football club received all sorts of useful things like football shirts and balls and goalposts. However, I'm not sure what they are going to do with Mr. Silly's donation. Before Eid began, Aleena and Little Miss Sunshine drew intricate henna mehndi patterns on each other. Little Miss Naughty offered to help, but wisely Aleena said no. Little Miss Scatterbrain was not so wise. Finally, the day of the Eid feast dawned, and everyone got dressed in their best and smartest clothes. Aleena put on her new dress. Mr. Funny wore his best shoes. Little Miss Scatterbrain chose her shiniest saucepan. Little Miss Splendid wore her most splendid hat. Mr. Nonsense brought out his special occasion gloves, and Mr. Greedy wore his biggest napkin. Everyone arrived at Aleena's for the feast. Ramadan, like Christmas, was a time for presents, and they all had brought gifts for each other. Little Miss Sunshine had brought some flowers. Mr. Mean gave Mr. Sneeze a tissue. Just the one. Mr. Funny gave little Miss Giggles a joke book, and little Miss Scary gave Aleena a cuckoo clock, a lovely looking clock, until it struck the hour. And then everyone sat down for lunch, a feast of a lunch. They had each brought a dish that they had made. The table was laden with plates of delicious food. It was a wonderful assortment of flavours and aromas and different styles. Little Miss Dotty had brought her speciality, cottage pie and custard. The Eid festival was also a time to settle arguments. It was a time to forgive. Little Miss Naughty had a lot to be forgiven for, and a lot of apologies to make. So many naughty tricks and mischievous pranks. It was going to be a long afternoon. And then they all went out to enjoy the Eid fair in town, where everyone greeted each other with cries of Eid Mubarak. Little Miss Hug rushed around hugging everyone except for Mr. Sneeze, who was reacting to all the aromas in the air. A tissue! I don't think Mr. Mean's one tissue will do the job. They bought a selection of sweets from a stall, baklava and halva and Turkish delight, Mr. Greedy's favourite, and little Miss Greedy's favourite. In fact, everyone's favourite. They ate the delicious treats while they watched a show. And then it was the big finale of the night. The sky was filled with fireworks. Rockets whizzed and banged overhead. Catherine wheels screamed and crackled, and the sparklers fizzed and, well, sparkled. It had been a wonderful celebration, and now it was time to go home to bed. Everyone was full and happy. The presents had been given, the fireworks had been fired, and there was nothing left of the enormous feast. That huge spread of food had all been eaten. Or had it? There was one dish left. Can you guess which one? That's right, little Miss Dotty's cottage pie and custard. Not even Mr. Greedy was tempted by that. Did you know there are two Eids in the Islamic lunar calendar? Eid-AL-FITR is celebrated by Muslims worldwide because it marks the end of Ramadan. As Muslims originate from many different countries, traditions vary, but Eid is centered around celebrating the end of a month of fasting and reflection by spending time with family, friends, and people within the community. In the weeks leading up to Eid, Muslims shop for new clothes and gifts and make a donation to charity known as zakat. Many decorate their houses for the occasion. On Eid morning, they dress in their best clothes and offer a special Eid prayer to give thanks to God. Muslims greet one another by saying Eid Mubarak, which means blessed festival, and also exchange hugs. The holiday serves as a reminder for Muslims to be grateful for what they have and to share with those who may be less fortunate. Thank you for listening.